Okay, so true or false? A hypothesis test was conducted to see if a new HIV vaccination reduces the risk of contracting the HIV virus. The implications of a type 2 error from the clinical trial is that the vaccination will not be approved when it indeed does reduce the risk of contracting the HIV virus. Okay, so they're going to type 2 error is the question. And here's from your notes. This is your exam three notes, part number 5, type 1 error, type 2 error. Well, to understand that, we have to first write out, because they refer, notice, to the null hypothesis, don't they? So we've got to know what is the null hypothesis here. Well, that starts with the claim. What's being claimed? To see if a new HIV reduces, that's less. They're saying the claim is the average for the new drug is less, the less than some number. They're not telling us what the number, right? I don't know what percentage the old drug cured, but they're hoping that, the vaccination, but they're hoping this vaccination makes a lower percentage get the HIV virus. So less. The claim is less. So now we have to write HO, H1. What is HO always?
Equals.
Always equals. Very good. Always equals. So it's we don't need to know the number, but we know HO is always equals. The claim, therefore, is less than some number. I'm gonna write claim next to that one. There we go. Okay. So now, what's a type 2 error? According to the notes, failed to reject the null when it was really false and should have been rejected. So type 2, let me write that. Type 2 error. So in a court of law, if they make a mistake, they let a guilty person go, or they take an innocent person and charge them guilty. Which one is this? A type 2 error is when you fail to reject the null when you should have rejected it, when the null is actually false. Does that make sense? So in this clinical trial here, they want to come to the right conclusion. They want to know if this new vaccination is really better. We're living in COVID days right now, right? So this is important. When they come out, they're coming out with vaccines for COVID, perhaps. I mean, they are, but we're not sure they're a good vaccine or not. They're testing. They want to find out. This affects the whole world that we live in. It's statistical evidence they need to find out if these new vaccines are really going to work or not. We don't want to make an error. We don't want a type 1 or type 2 error. What would a type 2 error mean? It would mean you would fail to reject the null when it should have been rejected because it's actually false. So you would fail to, in other words, you would keep the null when it's actually false, right? Fail to reject means keep. So you keep the null when it's actually false. You should have rejected it. Let's see what it says here. So it says a type 2 error from the clinical trial is that the vaccination will not be approved. Is that true? How do you know that? Vaccination, well, it said the new vaccine is lower. That's the claim. This is the new vaccine right here. It's the claim, right? They're claiming the new vaccine is lower. That's the new one. That's the new one. So it's H1. H1 is the new vaccine. That's what they're claiming is better. So what does it say here? The vaccination will not be approved. Did we not take H1? Yeah, exactly. Right? Because instead we kept HO. And it was false. We shouldn't have. That's what a type 2 error says. You failed to reject the null. You keep the null. You keep the null, and you shouldn't have. You keep the null So that means you cross out the H1 because you're keeping the null. You failed to reject the null, you keep the null. So you got rid of the claim, you got rid of the new vaccine. You said, no, we don't think the new vaccine's better. We're keeping the old one. We're keeping the null, right? The new vaccination will not be approved when indeed it is better. Yeah, that's exactly what a type 2 error would be. That would be if we had a new vaccine for COVID, but people, the studies ended up rejecting and saying, no, we don't think it's better, when really it works. That would be a type 2 error. Exactly.